Kliptown holds a very special place in our country's history. It became a town a year before Soweto, and more importantly was the host of the Congress of the People in 1955. This gave rise to the Freedom Charter, which is a core document of our constitution. In there, our people's demands of freedom are enshrined. We returned to Kliptown 58 years after the Freedom Charter was adopted, as well as 20 years since the birth of our celebrated democracy.
This epidemic has the potential to bring us closer together. We are responding as a united nation to a common threat. This national emergency demands that we cooperate, that we collaborate, and that we take common action. More than that, it requires solidarity, understanding, and compassion.
As news of the virus spread across the world, we began to worry about what this meant for Kliptown. More and more was being spoken about how close proximity meant the transmission of the virus. Recommendations from World Health Organization, the Center for Disease Control, governments across the world began giving recommendations of distancing, of isolation if you had symptoms, of washing hands regularly, of avoiding tight common spaces. As we listened, our hearts sank, knowing that none of these were realistic in Kliptown, where toilets were shared and water sources were communal. In Freedom Charter Square squatter camp, it's common that 7 households share a single toilet. None of us at 1955 have a medical background, but we began reading, and we read voraciously about virus loads, about rates of human-to-human contact, about human-to-surface contact, about infection rates, what carrier spreading meant, what vector spreading meant, understanding the difference between these two, thinking about the trucks that come in to clean the toilets and how they go from community to community, about virus shedding through aerosol droplets in poorly ventilated areas and what this meant in the tight chemical toilets, about droplet sizes and data from epidemics and from the early COVID experiences in other places. And we worried as we thought about all of this in the dusty streets of Kliptown, where already people had lungs irritated by burning fuels and poorly ventilated dwellings, where people's health was already compromised by chronic hunger and by a lack of regular medical support. Though much of the literature talked about surfaces not being a high risk, this didn't hold true for places like Kliptown, simply because the number of people touching shared spaces is so much higher. And we identified the toilets as a high-risk place of transmission. Going to the toilet meant touching surfaces, doors, handles, seats that had been touched and touched and touched.
Manibonga bafowethu, for now in area eKliptown kune-challenge of which nje abantu abakayibheki ngendlela engakhona. La eKliptown mfowethu since sikule squatter camp, development is slowly, truly speaking, is slowly. As ubona nawo ama-service asinawo la, asinawo ama-service. Ungastarta nje ukubheka nje kwabafowethu abasanitize ama-toilets. It's new to us, that thing, because into engakhange sixelelwe ngayo sithishwe ukuthi mase kufika like ama-social department akavisite kwi-community bawathuthi abantu bakithi you need to do this and that and that. You understand, ukukhuthaza abantu especially kwi-flag efana ne-squatter camp, but those things asizitholanga. Sine-challenge eblind yama-toilet, sine-challenge yamanzi, especially with the COVID-19, and they really matter that it cracks our head indaba ye-ambulance. Ngikwatile bangilana tufike kimi namhlanje. We tried to get the ambulance yesterday, of which abantu bakhona bafone ngabo-6, ngafika ngo-8 nami ngayifonela i-ambulance. Only to kunikezwa ama-reference number, ukuthi hayi izoze i-ambulance waze washona umuntu izoshonela endlini. I'm talking about those yesterday. As we know now, kunabantu abavele bawe yini. Yeah, we know ukuthi vele it's difficult to expose umuntu ukuthi hayi now lo muntu sekabulawe i-COVID what we understand because iyayibona abantu sebabuye manje bafuna ukudegrade abanye abantu because ubandlele sifo which la nto yana ikhethe bani yethu sonke understand but really this thing ifikile deep down ngoba sesinabantu asebashonile just in this month abayi-3 including lo madala bavele bawe boom nayo madala masibekwe ukhala ngepain kwi-chest up until aze uluze umphefumulo. No ambulance ema-attendayo. When we try to get our counselor, you can't find the counselor ukutshela ukuthi hayi ifone is doing this and that, you understand. It's painful for the community. Akhona abantu abakhona ukucancela laba abantu abashonelwe. Yeah, to come to that issue ama-toilet, if you know, ama-toilet akhiwe for i-safety mnganami. And then understand that chief yam, if you leave the toilets open, it's a highly risky for our children. But what we specialize in kakhulu thina kubantwana ukuthi abantwana bayuse i-bucket. Then you can take that bucket in it because you can't put your child, especially that chemical ethelwa lapha etoilet. Beside the COVID, the chemical is dangerous for us. If really government can push this thing reblocking, ezokuthina ezokwenza ngcono. Because we know that once wayenze reblocking, we can take these toilets beyond.
Yabo inkinga yalapha eMarikana yokuqala ngizoqala ngayo ukuthi sisebenzisa izinyoka bona asinagesi njengaseMandela Square bona Mandela Square baphila kamnandi kanjani manje sesiyawufuna nathi lo gesi lo wangapha ngoba yabona manje ngibuye kubuyisa iTV yami ishile nawo la madrata lapha bona masingaba thola ama-toilet aflashayo sithola ugesi we-right I think kungaba ngcono singaphila right njengabanye abantu yabo.
Batla matlo ha tsela mangwele ke batla matlo le motlakase ke ne re dula Kliptown from 1986 ke bitsofalla jalo so bile ona le corona e tla beng ke ska ka hlola ke le bona